Hi there and welcome to MiWeek. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Christy McDonald. We are just 3 months into 2015, but there has been no shortage of news in Michigan during this new year. The state has a new school superintendent. Detroit Public Schools has a new emergency manager. Plus, voters will decide in May whether Proposal 1 is the best solution for fixing the state's crumbling roads and bridges. There is a lot to talk about with our guest today, Governor Rick Snyder. Governor, welcome back to MiWeek. It's always good to see you.
It's great to be with you again.
Of course, and we have our MiWeek contributors, Nolan Finley of the Detroit News and Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press. So I have to say, we noticed you coming in studio. You did not have your scooter. You've got a boot. How's the recovery been going?
Good, thank you. Yeah, I'm hobbling around now, and the boot another week or two, but I'm on path to a full recovery.
That's good. It's good to see you, and it's good to see that you brought some props. So I guess we have to start off with Proposal 1 when we're talking about our crumbling roads and bridges. But let me say, people have said that this is a convoluted proposal. It's a confusing one, and it allocates money that doesn't just go to the roads. So why is this the best solution to fixing our roads in Michigan?
Well, it's a good, solid solution that's good public policy, and that's why we should be supportive. And illustrate that, it was a proposal to get it on the ballot required a 2/3 vote of both chambers of the legislature. So it had broad bipartisan support. Again, we worked through the issues between both parties, both chambers, and this is a good outcome. We need safer roads in Michigan. And to help illustrate the point about how important it is, I did bring this today to give you an idea. This is a piece of Michigan Bridge. This is a piece of concrete that fell off a Michigan Bridge. You do not want to see this end up in your vehicle. And that's one of the reasons we really need to stay on top of this and make this happen.
People will agree, many of them will say, yeah, we know the roads are bad and the bridges are bad, and we wouldn't mind paying a little bit of extra money for it, but is there money that we're already paying to Lansing that could be reallocated in another way?
Well, I appreciate your question, Christy. There's 4 or 5 common objections, and people's objections vary based on their background. That's one of them. Is why don't we find other resources to do that? And it's a good question. We've been working on this issue for several years now. And we do very smart and very good budgeting, I believe, at the state level. So over the last 3-4 years, we've been allocating general fund dollars to transportation. That traditionally wasn't done. General fund dollars stayed to the general fund, transportation funded transportation, but we've squeezed that budget to the degree of about $100 million to over $300 million, depending on the year. That's about the leeway we had. That's not a good answer. Those were recurring dollars. So we don't have the resources other places. So we need additional revenue. And that's one of the challenges people face. And I appreciate that. Tax increases are not easy, but this was a smart one.
So there's no question in people's minds, it seems, that the roads are bad and that they're dangerous and that they want them fixed. And yet the public support for this has been pretty low and lower than you'd like going into a ballot initiative. You'd want to see it around 60%. Or somewhere around 49 to 52% according to the polls that I've seen a while ago. What's the disconnect there? Why is it not selling to people that this is the solution, even though they agree that there is a big problem?
Yeah, well, what I'd say first, Stephen, is the momentum's very much in a positive way. There's a coalition that's really leading the effort on this. Safe Roads Yes, and I encourage people to go to saferoadsyes.com to get more information. It started with a few groups. It's now over 100 organizations, of very large organizations in our state, and one of the broadest coalitions I've ever seen. Once people get the information, they get on board. So it includes groups like SBAM, the Small Business Association of Michigan, many business organizations, the Regional Chamber here in Detroit. But it also includes many union organizations, the Teachers Union, the AFL-CIO came on board, firefighters, policemen. So it's got huge support from many different groups, and that coalition has been growing dramatically.
And so what will it take, though, for you to close the deal with voters? What do you think you have to do over this next 30 or 40 days to get people to vote yes?
Yeah, well, answer their concerns. And that's why I appreciate the opportunity to be on the show today. I want to get out and talk to people and have them ask those tough questions that they're concerned about, because there are good answers to them. And also make it clear, I mean, we've needed to do this for years. And it's now time to step up.
When you first started talking about this in, what was it, 2012?
Yeah, I did a special message on this topic to say how we needed to invest.
Right.
And the issue is not doing something is the worst answer of all. One, we're going to have unsafer conditions every day that passes, but the costs go up dramatically. The cost to repair a road, if you say it's $1, the cost to rebuild a road is 6 times as much. And so that number is going to grow dramatically. So to the degree we're talking about $1.2 billion today, if we put off this issue for several more years, one, we'd see a lot crummier roads, and the cost to repair then would go well beyond probably $2 billion and could grow higher than that a year.
Well, Governor, let's get to some of those questions that voters have about this proposal, or some of the objections they may have. One being that it's way too complex, a lot of moving pieces in this measure.
And I really appreciate that question, Nolan, because actually we're reducing complexity. What we have now is a complex system, and that's the challenge, is if you look at it, when you go to the pump and you pay for your gas, most people don't object to having whatever they pay at the pump go to transportation. That's not Michigan today. We pay 19 cents a gallon, a flat amount that goes to transportation. The rest of the state tax is really the retail sales tax, which is often larger than the 19 cents based on fuel prices. So that money is not going to transportation. So what this proposal does is to say, let's have everything at the pump go to transportation. So we would increase the 19 cents to approximately 42 cents a gallon, and then we'd eliminate the retail sales tax, and that's why we have to go to the ballot. Because if we just did that without another solution, we would create a big budget hole for schools and local government, and that wouldn't be right. So to solve that problem, we needed to come up with the best answer for that, and the easiest answer is to increase the retail sales tax from 6 to 7%. And that requires a vote of the people, but it showed. We had a 2/3 vote of each chamber to put that on the ballot.
But this measure does more than just make the schools whole. It brings in additional money for schools and for other things, for additional revenue sharing money, restores the earned income tax credit. A lot of folks are saying, why do we need all of this extra money in this measure? What's your answer to that?
Yeah, well, let's walk through those extra pieces, because again, I think they all have good merit to them. First of all, when you talk about the local government piece, that's approximately $100 million. Well, that's really looking to almost restore what the difficult cuts we had to make in 2011. If you look at that $100 million, we're about $70 million down from the 2011 amounts. So this helps restore that. In terms of other restoration, you mentioned the earned income tax credit. That was cut as part of the budget package. We're restoring that, and that's particularly important because retail sales tax can tend to be more regressive. So what we're going to do is help really protect lower income people from the burden of this sales tax increase, which I think is a fair answer. The third piece where there really is probably new net revenue would be for the school aid fund of about $300 million. But if you look at some of the initiatives we're talking about, more pre-3, working on third grade reading and such, that's critically important. But this will allow us to do some great work for career tech education and helping build the skilled trades in Michigan. And if I find an issue that has really broad support, you start talking about career tech ed and skilled trades, I think we all believe that. And just this last year's budget, I recommended adding another $35 million or so to that budget. So there's areas to invest smartly that have a return in terms of really good, well-paying jobs for Michiganders.
People are already talking about what could be the plan B to this if this doesn't pass on May 5th, or is that already detrimental to getting this proposal passed if you're already talking about, well, what happens if it doesn't?
Yeah, there is no plan B. In fact, if you look at it, I believe we'd go back to square -2 in this analysis. And why do I say that? Legislators have been challenged to vote for a tax increase in any circumstance. And if you see a situation where the people have just voted something down, they're going to be even more hesitant to move forward on some proposal. And that is a problem. To be open, this was not my perfect solution that I proposed. I actually wanted 2 options that we would go to the ballot with and give voters a choice. We only have 1 option, but this is a good option. And our alternative is to do nothing. The very worst answer, the terrible answer here, is to do nothing and just watch our roads continue to go down. One, we're jeopardizing the safety of our citizens, and secondly, the costs are just going to grow dramatically to do something later. So I'm a positive guy. I believe in relentless positive action. We've got an opportunity to solve a problem. Shouldn't we come together as Michiganders and just solve it?
So,
and that's what the coalition is doing.
Well, so obviously Michigan does not spend enough on roads compared to states around us and compared to the rest of the country. If this does pass in May, how would we stack up then compared to the rest of the country in terms of how much we spend on our roads?
Yeah, well, to give you an easy illustration, in Ohio, we spend about $1 billion less. And people notice that. I mean, I have people tell me stories about, they tell me they're a passenger, but they're in some vehicle and they close their eyes and they can tell you when you cross the state line. So this would get us $1.2 billion. So this would get us in a league where we can do good work to keep good roads in Michigan.
But Ohio also has things like toll roads, and
Yeah.
I know those are self-contained. It's not money that they use for other roads, but they're bringing a lot more money into the system to maintain the infrastructure. Are those kinds of things that we're going to have to look at even after this passes, if it does?
We'll always look at options, Stephen, but toll roads probably aren't a great option in Michigan. To the degree we already have a freeway, literally a freeway.
Right.
The only way you convert that is to pay back the federal government.
Right.
It's been
You have
invested.
to.
So
That's
you
right.
could look at new lanes or new opportunities. They could be looked at. But one of the reasons you see Ohio and their toll roads is they're getting a lot of that from out-of-state people traversing
Coming
the country.
through, sure.
And that's why if you look at Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, that whole stream is taking advantage of that, where we're a peninsula.
But we have a
We're a
lot of people
beautiful
coming
peninsula,
through
but yes.
here going to
Yeah.
Canada, though.
But
for
not near the
instance.
volumes you would see in the other
Right,
cases.
right.
So, Governor, one of the other things we hear from our readers is that Michigan builds lousy roads and that they break down soon after they've been paved, that we don't hold contractors to the tough enough standards, and that trucks beat the heck out of our roads. Well, what will this measure do to address those concerns?
Well, let me address the historical piece and then the perspective piece. From a historical perspective, we do see crews a lot going back to the same piece of road. That's because we've underinvested in our roads so much, we're just doing Band-Aids. We're not able to do the real reconstruction you'd like to see happen. On your warranty question, Michigan's the nation's leader in requiring warranties on road projects. We lead the entire nation by far. And that's something we should be proud of, but going prospectively, there's several pieces of legislation that go along with this package that are going to improve that a lot. One, it's going to require many more warranties, not just from the state, but from local government and counties on bigger projects. It's going to do more for competitive bidding to make sure we're getting the best pricing. It requires preventive maintenance programs from the state and from our largest counties that need to be on record to show people how we're doing good stuff.
Sure. Now, you brought that rock along to emphasize the danger that these roads present. And something like that fall through your windshield, it would take the starch out of you. But can you quantify the number of additional deaths Michigan has associated to bad roads?
Well, again, if you looked at the information, a number we used a couple years ago when I was going through it, it could be roughly in the range of 100 or so. Again, it's hard, not just because of this piece, but in terms of road conditions really creating
Swerving and what have you.
a more challenging environment.